On this Garlic Marketing Show, we're going to talk about setting your business up for sale, especially digital agencies. We're going to talk about what's a healthy profit for a digital agency, how much should digital agency owners get paid, especially if they want to sell, the number one component to scaling agency profit for exit, and how to gauge your authority, how to choose what we should be choosing or charging hourly. One of the biggest mistakes in growth, how to find a fun and profitable niche, the misconception of founder-led sales. I mean, this is an amazing episode, and we're talking about beer a little bit. I've got Jonathan Baker from Punctuation.com out of Atlanta. Jonathan, say hi.
Hey.
And we're going to talk about all this and more, as well as tell you what Jonathan's favorite beer is, which has sounded really good on the Garlic Marketing Show. But of course, this is brought to you by videocasestory.com. One of the best ways you can use to improve your sales is use case stories throughout it. We're going to show you how to actually get 10 more sales in the next 90 days using video case stories. Just go to videocasestory.com/10 sales, and we're going to give you a worksheet to get that done. All right, let's get started.
My name is Gino Wickman. I was introduced to Ian, and that's what brought me into this video world and got me embracing this video world. And Ian did exactly what I hoped. He got me really comfortable with putting videos out to the world and having a great strategy around putting videos out to the world, because there's so much more than just shooting a video. And so the way that he positions those videos, optimizes those videos, he's done a great job.
Right. But you know what's interesting, Jonathan, before the show, you talked about one of the biggest questions people have, and it was amazing to me, but I think we should get it out there. What's the biggest question that you hear from digital agencies right now on the selling their business?
Why do I need to worry about profit?
Sorry, I don't mean to laugh if you're asking that question, but people like to buy businesses that make money. Is that pretty much the simple answer to that?
That's pretty much the simple answer. Yeah. I mean, you'll hear stories, about an agency that's sold because of the team or like its relationship with a particular client, but those are rare, and those aren't something you can seek after yourself. They kind of fall in your lap.
Gotcha. Yeah. So those are unicorn stories. And what, given that, what are you're at Punctuation, I'm sure you've seen a bunch of agencies, a bunch of businesses come through. What are you seeing as the true average net profit when you see an agency come to you for the first time?
Like as a percentage?
Yeah, just a range percentage.
Yeah, I think, 15 to 30%.
Nice.
That's a healthy range. We often don't see that. We'll see 5%, or, frankly, this year we've seen negative. So our goal is to get folks to 20%. That's kind of a level at which I think buyers, see you as a stable profit driving company.
And getting to 20%, is that, just from a stat standpoint too, 20% also includes paying yourself a good salary, because you can have 20% profit, right, and not be paying yourself at all and be like, well, I've got 20% profit, but you're like, yeah, but you aren't taking home any money. What do you see should, if they're getting 20% profit, let's say it's $1 million agency, what should the owner be paying themselves?
So we look at it in terms of like your team size, right? Generally, you should be paying yourself at least 15% more than the highest paid person on your team. I would say it starts at 120,000. It can go up to, 400,000. And the reason why this is so important, particularly if you're going to sell your agency, is that a buyer's going to make that calculation for you if you are not making it yourself. So they're going to come in and say, okay, I'm going to buy you, but I'm going to have to replace you, right? And so what am I going to have to pay someone to replace you? And I'm going to take that out of your profit. And so you're not going to be worth as much. So look, you may as well pay yourself what you're worth now.
Yeah. It's also nice to get paid. I like getting paychecks. I mean, it's like we got into this business so we could be free. And like, I see all these agency owners I know struggling, like, like, oh, I don't have enough money to do this and this and this. I'm like, yeah, why are you doing this then? Uh,
You should be the first one to get paid,
yeah.
right? And your agency might go through rough patches where you kind of make some choices and dial things down or whatever, but um, remember why you started it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, it's getting there and getting and raising this profit. And, we've had a bunch of people on, and I've seen like the agencies that are the biggest and most profitable really focus on, everyone thinks it's like getting better. I think a lot of agency owners think it's like, oh, I'm going to add this new tactic or get better at website design. And the people I've really seen anecdotally are the ones that focus on sales and marketing growth. Those are the ones to a certain extent that really grow to the really big ones. Is that what you see as well?
Yes, it is. And I think one of the biggest components of that is really just how you position yourself as an agency. So
Mm,
the more specialized you can be, not only does that make it easier for you to develop a marketing and sales plan because you know kind of exactly who you're going after and what you're selling to them, but it also over time allows you to charge more for the same type of work, right? And you're obviously you're becoming an expert, and so you can start charging more for that expertise, and then your profit margins go up.
that I think is such a crucial piece too, is building that authority and the correlation between authority and profit. And I use that term authority, and I know it's always so vague, but I mean, I'm sure you see it. I mean, is there any way to gauge that, or is it kind of this random thing, that correlation there?
To gauge how well positioned you
Yeah,
are.
well, gauge the level of authority you have so that you can command the highest prices. Or is it just like, is it?
I think you can gauge it by the prices you can charge. If you are consistently charging clients, above 160 bucks an hour at a blended rate, I would say that's a good benchmark. We have clients that charge 250 an hour, but you want to get above 160. Uh, and another kind of good test for you as a firm is, think about who you're trying to market to, and is there a list you can buy of that type of person or firm? And if so, then you're likely tightly positioned enough.
I love that. That's a great benchmark. Um, so building that authority, building that sales, building that marketing, you also help with that. What are the what are the biggest mistakes that you see, these agencies that are low profit percentage and not really selling and marketing enough? What are some of those common things you're seeing that can be remedied?
The biggest thing is not having the courage to really say no to business that doesn't make sense. You've got agencies that get a little panicky, um, need to cover their monthly overhead, and so they'll take work that might not be super profitable just so they can pay their employees.
Mm,
The way you should think about it is scale the team size down to as little as possible, so that you don't have that burden, and then build it up as you need to. But you really need to start from a place of strength. And I think another mistake we see is this: there's this assumption that positioning, authority happens overnight, or like it's a switch that you flip,
hmm.
and it's not. It takes time, and I'll say, just because you are saying that you do only this thing for only this type of business, that doesn't mean you aren't doing other things. That just means how you are talking about it publicly changes. And the true change happens behind the scenes, one client at a time.
Interesting. Interesting. And so, what does that look like for someone to do that? What, when you bring someone in, how does that work?
It starts with pattern matching. So let's take a look at the work you've done over the years. What are some commonalities in the work that you've both enjoyed and that has been profitable. And, it might be the type of work, it might be, SEM work or AI work, it might be an industry focus. But like, what are some of the things that we can point to as markers that have been both profitable and fun? And then can we bundle those together in a way that makes kind of a compelling story, and that there's enough demand for out there? And at some point, you do have to just plant your flag and say, this is what we're going to do, right? And that's the decision. That's kind of the courageous decision. But I wouldn't think of this as something that has to be perfect out of the gate.
Mhm.
It has to be, and I'm borrowing a phrase from Blair Enns, who wrote "Win Without Pitching." It has to be perfectible. So, you're not going to start and get it right exactly right the first time, but it has to be something that can get there over time. And so that's kind of what you're working towards.
That's such good advice, and it's getting out there, testing it, and improving it. Right? It's and because that's when I talk to other agencies, I'm like, hey, you've got to pick your niche, and we talk through this a little bit. They uh, they might say it, yeah, okay, I'm going to do this, and then like 6 months later, they're still branding it. Right? instead of going
Yes.
instead of like going out there and testing it, right?
Yeah.
um and so the other piece I've seen too is in this is founder led sales, and how much of a trap is this, and is this common, and what's the way out of it?
There's, I think there's a misconception that your goal is to get completely out of sales as a founder. And I would say that's not the goal. The goal is to make sales not 100% dependent on you. As founder, you're still probably going to be the best salesperson in the company, even if you're not good at sales.
Yep.
It's just the nature of the beast. You care more, you know more. Who cares if your personality sucks? Uh,
That's a good point. Like, yeah, I mean, I know it's like if you want something like super technical, and I'm building out like getting a software engineer or a software company, right? I kind of want them to be a nerd.
yeah, yeah. I'm not hiring you to be my best friend.
No.
Um, so we see blunders all the time where agency owners will hire this like expensive head of business development, and it just goes nowhere.
Yes.
And uh, so we advise folks to just embrace it. And so what you need to do then is understand your personal strengths and your personal limitations, and build a marketing, sales, lead generation plan around you.
Hmm.
Build one that you will not hate executing, because if you build something that you're going to hate executing, you're never going to do it. Like, let's be real.
Yep. No, it's. I mean, I think that's crazy important because I've seen it. Maybe you see this pattern too, is because they build something that they start to hate. And to your point, because they're building up a team and they're taking all this money in, and then eventually, and I just talked to someone the other day, it's like, I just have to make money to support this team, and now they're miserable. And then they think that the way out of it is to hire a salesperson, and
Yeah.
I'm going to hire this unicorn salesperson that's going to be magical. And folks, I just want to tell you, I've worked at a massive, large consulting agency and worked with several of them, companies that have 150, 200 salespeople that know how to hire and train salespeople. And probably one, two out of 200 they hire right. So I don't think that's going to, you can get lucky. But so untrapping themselves, and like you said, building something that they love, and building it around them, and having this.
I didn't say something you love.
Oh,
I said something you don't hate.
yes, good call. Something you don't. The difference, that is a big difference. And let's talk about that. What is the difference between something you love and something you don't hate?
As a founder, you likely did not get into the business to do sales. There might be a few that did. for the most part, you like the work, you like the clients, like there's something else. But the sales is a necessary evil in many cases. But it is a very necessary evil, and I'm using the term evil very loosely. And so you need to choose tactics that you are going to be able to commit to, right?
Hmm.
And it's like, oh, it's time to write another newsletter. Well, at least I don't have to go and speak to 1,000 people. Like I could have chosen that tactic. This is something I can do while I'm at the pool or whatever.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's very true. Yes. Um, so what, you know, someone's built something that they hate, and I'm sure you get a lot of those people, and they're stuck in sales. And how do they unravel this?
It starts with positioning. It starts with authority. It starts with let's strip it down to nothing. Pretend you don't have a team, right? Like
Mm,
let's pretend it's just you and me. What would you build now? Knowing what you know now, what would you build? And then once you have that settled, you decide what kind of infrastructure process you need around that. And some of your existing team, maybe all, might still be a key piece of that. But you have to take away your like guilt and uh, you know commitment to these parts of the business that aren't working for you. Remember, you started the business. It is your business. If it doesn't work for you, it doesn't work.
mm. That's, I mean, that I think that the thing you said there, it's so subtle, but it's so important. The guilt, and also like the guilt around kind of sunk costs, the guilt around the people. Um, why do how do we, I mean, because it's like you say get rid of the guilt, but it's like, I was brought up Catholic, and that's like, getting the pee out of the pool. um so how do you, how can they get rid of this? How do you help them get rid of this?
I think the guilt is primarily tied to your commitment you made to your people, right?
Hmm.
And it's really understanding, I think, two things. One, people are incredibly resilient, and everyone that you end up not, you know, working with now because you can't afford them or you go in a different direction, they're going to land on their feet
Yeah.
eventually. Um, and then the second thing is, I think of this as kind of a dating relationship. And I don't recommend dating your employees, but um, when you are dating, your goal, well, your goal could be to get to a marriage as quickly as possible, right? And so if you end up stuck in this relationship that you don't hate, but isn't going to get you exactly where you need to go, if you don't break up with that person, you are not loving that person well. You are actually deceiving that person by kind of leading them on and letting them just be a part of who they are, in your a cog in your machine. The loving thing for you to do is actually to let them go and let them go in a loving way, help them find a job that makes more sense for them and their skill set. But know that you are not building a family, you are building a team,
Mm.
and teams go through evolution. Your needs change over time. That's just a part of the life cycle of business, and you have to kind of just tell yourself and believe that that's just part of the game, right?
It is. I mean, that's amazing advice. And I think, like, if you're listening to this and you feel any of that, this is stuff you have to listen to over and over again. Because I've talked to so many agency owners, like, I had one agency owner I remember that we were coaching, and he's like, should I get rid of this person? Like, they're only working like 40 hours a month because I don't have work for them. I'm like, how you mean? And I'm like, how much are you paying them? Well, he needs this $80,000 a year salary. I'm like, what? I'm like, can I work for you?
Yeah.
And but it's not just, it's not just that person. I've seen that happen so many times. And that mentality that you said, I'm just like, I wish someone would have told me that 15, 20 years ago. Because, I remember hearing like Dan Kennedy saying employees suck, don't have employees. And then, the people are like, employees should be your family. And both those things are wrong. But to your point, it's like building a team. It's like, hey, we want, if you want to win the Super Bowl, you can't hold on to the place kicker that really should be the water boy, right?
Yeah. And if you've got a team that's too big, or you've got folks that are in the wrong positions on your team, you are being selfish by letting those people take take the rest of the team down, right?
Mhm.
You want the rest of the team to shine, and so you need to get rid of anything that's not kind of in express uh, pursuit of that goal.
Yes. No, exactly. Exactly. And I think that, and what's great now with remote is you can do so much with contractors. You can do so much with, different things. And um, it, everyone doesn't have to be there, and and they have a lot of options. But, coming back to the idea of team, when you see people really hitting their stride in growth, sales and marketing growth, what is what does that team look like? What are they doing? What are some of the things that you see really really work? Because there's so much information out there, but you're actually seeing the companies that make money, which I like, because it's like, if you don't profit, as we said, you don't have a valuable business, you hate your life, and then you're struggling. So what are the sales and marketing positions that you see are really necessary, and functionalities and output that really are the most common to success?
I don't know at the smaller end if there are any sales and marketing positions that are necessary, but there are roles that are necessary for people to take on. Um, and it does depend, right? It's built around your tactics. I would say the biggest kind of aha moment that we see that makes the difference between a growing agency and an agency that's stagnating is the principal's ability to trust their team to do the work and to not have to oversee everything that they're doing. The goal should be for the principal to get out of the day to day work as quickly as possible so that they can continue focusing on, sales and marketing.
That's interesting too. Um, why do you think, how does that mindset happen? I just had Kasim on from Solutions 8, and he went into it with, grow, and it was a great episode on hiring, because he really went into it with growing a business just from hiring well from the beginning and not being a part of it at all. But what, how do you get unstuck from that mentality? Because I see that a lot too. That everyone's like, well, I can't find anyone as good as me.
Yeah. Yeah. And likely you won't,
Yep.
right? Just know that you will never find someone that cares more than you, that maybe is as good as you at all these different things. Um, but you also need to recognize that you have limitations, and that could just be a limitation on time, but it's still a real limitation. And so at some point, if you do have a goal of growth, you need to give up control. um, and so bring on like-minded people. Likely you will be able to find people that are better than you at certain things. I mean, that's the goal. And trust them to do the job that you hired them to do, and stop eavesdropping, right? Like, check in with them weekly, have your leadership team meetings, and keep everyone on track and on the same page. But um, let them help you grow the company by giving you your time back to focus on the things that only you can do.
Mhm. So what, how do you figure out that, like, first hire, second, or like when you're trapped here, right? You've got someone who has a decent sized agency, but they're really in there. Is there like some way for them to figure out, like, what I need to hire first to start in that direction?
You're going to hate this answer. I would say if you've got a decent sized agency and that's where you are, likely it's not about hiring someone else. It's about letting some folks go.
I don't hate that answer. I think that's a smart answer.
Um, Give yourself the freedom to, not have that monthly payroll.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, most likely you have people doing too many things or not doing
Yeah,
profitable stuff, right? Um,
right.
awesome. Awesome. So tell us a little bit more about, if I want to sell my agency, how does it look like to work with you all?
Usually it's a 6 to 12 month process. We start with a valuation. That's a way to kind of get to know each other better, make sure everyone's on the same page about what we think we can get for your firm and also what terms we can get, because the terms are often more important than the actual value of the firm. What percentage are you going to get up front? How long are you going to have to be employed there, and in what capacity? What is your earnout going to be tied to doing? Then we'll create marketing materials, go to market. You start having kind of, conversations, 1 or 2 conversations a week as we are able to surface interest. And I think, we we function primarily as a therapist along the way. Um, I went through a failed sale of my own business and learned a lot about kind of the emotional side of selling a business. And so I think we approach things from a seller's perspective and wanting them to, it can be lonely. It can be a lonely process selling your business because you can't tell the folks that you're working with day to day until you're kind of right at the finish line usually. And so you need someone on your team that you kind of vibe with, and who can help coach you through these ups and downs.
Nice. And so go to punctuation.com/garlic. What are we going to find there?
You're going to find a little bit more about us. You'll see some information about, valuations. You'll actually be able to book some time on my calendar directly, which I hate, but you can do it. We also put out a weekly newsletter that's just chock full of free advice. A lot of the stuff that, I've been talking about today is just rehashing from the newsletter. So you can sign up for that as well.
Awesome. So put a link to that in the show notes. And where do you spend your time? Where can people follow you, John? Besides, fun fact. Let's talk about your brewery before we do that.
Yeah, I also own a brewery, Monday Night Brewing, based in Atlanta, Georgia, but we've got locations in Birmingham, Nashville, Knoxville, Charlotte. So I would say I spend a lot of my time steeped in alcohol.
Quite literally, not just drinking it. And okay, what's your favorite beer that you guys make?
Oh man, we make some really good like barrel aged stuff.
Oh, nice.
There's a rum barrel imperial stout we made that was just amazing.
Okay, we'll put a link to all that. That's the most important stuff we're gonna put in the show notes.
Yeah, forget about everything else I said.
I mean, because I'm looking here and I see oatmeal raisin cookie quad, and I'm like, that looks good. I just went to their Instagram. I'm like looking through here, and they've got a delicious looking Instagram too. So definitely follow them on Instagram. Jonathan, thank you so much for being on the Garlic Marketing Show.
Thanks for having me. It's been fun.
A lot of fun, and thank you all for taking Jonathan on your journey and making us a part of your story. This has been on Garlic and the Garlic Marketing Show.